have a good day everyone. My name is Castor Darrel from BSBA 2C. So today I'm going to discuss about a topic given by our professor, which is responding to globalizations. So anyways, what is globalizations? Globalization is the new buzzword that has come to dominate the world since the 90s of the last century, with the end of the Cold War and the breakup of the former Soviet Union. The term implies world integrations, amalgamations of various cultures, style, economic policies, ideas, etc. So globalization is a sequence of increased trade across the nations. So, based on Anthony Giddens in 1990, describes globalization as the intensifications of worldwide social relations which link distinct localities in such a way that local happenings are shaped by events occurring miles away. So the new challenge and opportunities created by the spread of globalization have reshaped both institutional and individual responses to this phenomenon. This comprehensive analysis of the way in which governments and firms have responded to globalization examines closely the options available to both, and the historical and the institutional context, the strategic decisions made. There's an impact of globalization to urbanizations. Urbanization is one of the negative impacts of the globalizations and integration of economies. Globalization leads to urbanizations, according to the United Nations Center of Human Settlements. In 1900, there were only 4 cities with a populations over 100,000 or more, and in 1961, there were 141 cities, and today the world urban population is increasing the rate of 1.3% per annum in the period of 1995 to 2000. The increased economic investments and proliferations in infrastructure development projects are exerting enormous pressures on the existing resources and the capacity of the cities to accommodate this unprecedented growth. Other detrimental consequences included poverty, housing shortage, inefficient and inequitable delivery of infrastructure services, economic inequalities, social exclusions, and poor quality local environments. Globalization has increased the disparities between the developed or rich and poor nations. The developing countries, for example African countries, seem to be included from the technological advance, information-based economy of the world system. At the same time, there's also an increasing social and economic disparity within the urban areas in the developed countries. The high-skilled workers are in a better position than before with the advanced and high-technology jobs, and there has not been proportional increase for the low-skilled workforce. So, in terms of spatial geography, there has also been a change in patterns of industrial locations. There has been a change in the spatial divisions of labor and techniques of productions, where the different stages of productions could be divided according to the specific features and specializations of different regions and their workforce. The management of this system being administered with the help of telecommunications and the information technologies industries. So in responding of globalizations, we have a globalizations and a planning. So the pressures on urban planning arise from global hierarchy of cities and the impact these cities have in regional and local contexts. Economic globalizations within the worldline cities of local employment sources had led to its transformations at the level of human interactions has transformed into new dimensions never experienced before, with the telecommunications and transportations being the key players in stimulating the experience. So the concept of globalization has meant to represent the combination of these two forces, the pressures to integrate the global forces and the local pressures. So, the challenge faced by the government have become even more complex, and apart from responding to the pressures of the domestic demands and their political legitimacy, their internal needs and self-interest, they have to balance the pressures from the super governmental or global political structures like the World Bank and United Nations. So globalizations has also present a new avenues for planning practices and academia. The process of globalization requires planners to become more sensitive to flexibility and the plethora of options offered by the globalizations affect to develop solutions and mechanisms that are timely and rapid solutions. So, globalizations and planning contended, for example, the increased use of geographic information system data and remote sensing data can facilitate the research and flow of informations in urban growth and development and effective spatial planning. So, the Newman and Thornley on 2002 observed that in the global era, planning lies at the interface of market and politics. So responding to globalizations has its advantage and disadvantage. And from the perspective of planning professions, an increased flow of information internationally is one of the advantages that will be effective tools to facilitate two-way learning by comparisons. And responding globalization is essentially a process that involves the following general tasks. So the first one is to identifying the language and locales that must be supported, designing features that support targeted markets, language, and locales, writing code that functions equally well in any of the supported locales. These tasks are all centered on the concept of local and cultural awareness. So responding globalization by law. So responding globalizations of law may be defined as the worldwide progressions of transnational legal structures and discourses along the dimensions of extensity, intensity, velocity, and impact. Research and demonstrate that globalization is variable contested in several domains of research and law. So we have four. The first one is the construction and regulation of global markets, crimes against humanity and genocide, the diffusions of political liberalisms and constitutionalisms, and the last is the institutionalizations of women's rights. So the effectiveness is the further globalizing legal norms and the practice are located from core local cultural institutions and beliefs. The less likely global norms will provoke explicit contestations and confrontations. Future research will be productively directed to where and how global law originates, and how when global norms and law are transmitted and enforced, and how global local settlements are negotiated. Economically, through discriminations in favor of male workers, marginalizations of women in unpaid or informal labor, exploitations of women in low-wage, sweatshop settings, and or impoverishment, thought loss of traditional sources of income. Politically, through exclusions from the domestic political process and of control to global pressures. Culturally, through loss of identified autonomy to hegemonic global culture. In situations where women have been historically represented or discriminated under a particular divisions of labor, some features of globalizations may have liberating consequences. So, how globalizations or how responding to globalization affects poverty? So, we have a competitions among workers or foreign investment or trade or government varying there is no single measures of integrations into world economy. Like globalization has become a dominant factor in producing a new kind of poverty